Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi arrived in Basra only hours after returning from his trip to Washington, D.C. He met local politicians late on Saturday night with the hopes of calming the anger on the streets. But he had a warning for those looking to cause trouble.
This is a message to all criminals and killers. This is a new government that is working to establish the prerequisites of security. It aims to establish security and prevent crime. I'd like to tell everyone who carries a weapon contrary to the government's law, they won't escape punishment and the killers will be brought to justice very soon. I'd like to tell the criminals who assassinated Hisham al-Hashimi, TAHSEEN, and the young female doctor that your blood will be a title for justice.
33-year-old Riham Yaqub is the young female doctor Prime Minister Kadhimi referred to. She was a prominent activist in Basra and led several women's marches. She was killed on Wednesday when gunmen with assault rifles riding a motorcycle opened fire on her car. Days earlier, gunmen had shot dead activist TAHSEEN OSAMA. Their deaths sparked days of protests and unrest. Fueled by anger, protesters set fire to local government buildings in the southern Iraqi city, demanding those responsible be brought to justice and calling for the resignation of the provincial governor, Asad al-Aidani. The recent rise in targeted killings poses a challenge for the new prime minister. There have been nearly a dozen attempts on the lives of well-known activists this month, and 4 have been killed, 3 of them in Basra. The prime minister dismissed the local police chief last week after Osama's death. In response, a number of senior tribal leaders issued a statement saying they'll arm themselves if the government fails to protect the people. This is the worst unrest the city has seen since last year's protests, which led to the resignation of Prime Minister Adel Abdul Mahdi. Basra is known as the wealthiest province in Iraq. It's home to most of the country's oil reserves, yet it has some of the worst facilities and public services. Years of mismanagement and corruption have led to protests on a regular basis.
Let's go live to Dorsa Jabbari, who's in Baghdad. Dorsa, do we have any further updates about what the situation is like in Basra?
Yes, Rob, we've just been hearing from a number of protesters who've reached out saying that they have begun to gather in the city of Basra and that they feel that their demands have not been met. So we're expecting to see some crowds again this evening in that city. We also have heard from the newly appointed chief of police in Basra province. He issued a directive earlier on Sunday to his entire staff and all the security apparatuses in that province. There was a number of things he highlighted. The first was that there are to be no armed civilians in that province. This is something that the police will be trying to regulate, encouraging people to lay down their arms, to try and dissuade people from escalating the tensions that are ongoing. The other issue that was mentioned in this directive by the newly appointed police chief is that vehicles that do not have license plates will be stopped and taken in by police. This is in an attempt to try and rein in these militias that many believe are behind these killings of these protesters. Things appear to be very tense in that province. The Prime Minister Kadhimi has left Basra already. We understand that he's back in the capital, and the protesters that we've been hearing from over the past few minutes say that they have gathered yet again and they are going to demand the same thing that they've been demanding over the past few weeks. The local governor needs to resign and there needs to be accountability. There needs to be people brought to justice for these killings.
As Dorsa Jabbari bringing us up to date from Baghdad on the situation in the southern city of Basra. Dorsa, thank you very much.